Hello and welcome to round 14 coverage here from Grand Prix Dallas Fort Worth. Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Jacob Van Lunen. Patrick Cox with his Team Channel Fireball gear here is playing the deck that a lot of the players from that team played in this tournament. It's Orzhov Aggro, mainly white weenie. Like if you know how the current builds of mono white aggro deck look, it looks like that, but with a couple of black cards splashed in, which certainly changed the complexity or the complexion of the deck. On the other side of the table, Rudy Fernande in a deck that has really fallen out of favor in a pretty big way. In fact, mono green devotion hasn't really had its time in the sun yet. We've seen it paired with red quite a bit. And
yeah, sometimes people pair it with red, sometimes with blue. His list is kind of interesting. I mean, he only has one copy of Garruk Primal Hunter, which to me is the whole reason to play that archetype.
Okay.
But
wow. And a nice aggressive start for him here. Oop. Pat Cox was actually thought that he was attacking with Elvish Mystic, but he wasn't. He was playing another Elvish Mystic. So Colonian Tusker and 2 Mystics makes 5 power here on turn 2 for Rudy Fernande. Also, if he finds a Nykthos anytime soon, he can really just dump his hand onto the battlefield here. Right now, though, Pat Cox finds Precinct Captain to play defense at least against the 2 Elvish Mystics, but Colonian Tusker is going to continue to do its work. And he is going to attack with it too. So, you know, you could certainly make an argument for holding it back and blocking.
I would hold it back.
Okay. But he says, I'm going to put it to you. I'm going to attack you. He's got 5 mana available. What is he going to play? Well, another Elvish Mystic.
Play his Ooze too, I imagine.
And he's got a Scavenging Ooze. So this still sets him up for kind of an awkward situation because there's no creatures in the graveyard right now. It does let him set up, though, to play Big Garruk next turn. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mana here.
I mean, he also has some other like cool plays that he can make. Like if his opponent attacks the Precinct Captain, what he could have done is he could have like blocked with like Elvish Mystic and Scavenging Ooze.
Yeah,
and
let
then
first strike.
let first strike damage
Yeah,
resolve.
but then the Scavenging Ooze dies, and it just gets awkward. Yeah. So he just actually just says, no, I'm just going to take it. I'm just going to ignore your Precinct Cap. Well, he ignored it until he read it. So we'll see how this goes for Rudy, because one of the ways that he can lose this game is letting Pat Cox get Daring Skyjacks going that can fly over everything in conjunction with Brave the Elements to get in for like 2 big hits, something like that, and finish off Rudy.
Yeah, you're just giving your opponent extra value off that Captain by attacking with the Tusker last turn. Of course, you're going to play your Garruk this turn, and then you never really need to attack again. You can just chump block forever.
Right.
But, I mean, had he not attacked, then his opponent wouldn't have that Soldier, and then he wouldn't have to worry about the Daring Skyjack coming in with flying next turn, and his Garruk would be completely safe, and now his Garruk is not safe. So
a potential misstep early there. I mean, when you have the draw that Rudy has, you got to figure that you're the control player. Wow, another attack here, though. He is staying very aggressive.
That's crazy. That's like a very, very, very aggressive attack.
And Pat Cox actually does block here, and then now he has a relatively safe Garruk, as it should only be taking 2 damage on this next turn. All right, here's 5. Wow, 4 forests and a Nykthos. So get rid of all of those. I mean, even though he didn't actually hit anything off of that, he's got to feel pretty good about getting all of those cards off the top of his deck. Nykthos, I'm sure he wouldn't have minded, but 4 more forests, no thanks.
Yeah, he does not want those forests. What's the last card in his hand? Are we aware?
It is Experiment 1.
Oh, okay.
He doesn't have any mana to activate his Scavenging Ooze, even though there are 2 creatures in the graveyard now. So Precinct Captain has free reign to attack Garruk or even to attack Rudy.
And he's going to go ahead and attack Rudy and not the Garruk. Really just going to focus on his opponent's life total here. He realizes that if he tries to go into that long game plan, he's really just not going to have any sort of chance. He needs to attack Rudy's life total and then chain together a Brave the Elements or 2 to actually finish things off.
Yeah, he doesn't get the Soldier token unless it hits a player, so wow. A little awkward, though. Double Soldier of the Pantheon versus mono green.
Yeah, I mean,
it's good in the format, but in this particular matchup, it's probably not going to be as good.
It is fine here as just a white 2-power guy that's going to eventually
Get Brave
deal
the
damage with
elements.
Brave the Elements.
Yeah, sure. Good. That's true. Apparently the apocalypse has begun here in Dallas as there's now birds flying around the building.
Yeah, in the
I
convention
just had
center.
to duck down and there's feathers falling from the sky. So yeah, it's been a weird weekend and it continues to be that.
It's just getting weirder at this point.
Rudy,
That's it. It's an interesting choice there.
he just put in Pelukrinos with Garrick, and now he's going to have mana to. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mana, so he can activate it for 2.
Yeah, so he can kill both of those soldiers if he wants to, and then
Whoa. Oh, those soldiers. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of soldiers on the battlefield.
the ones of the Pantheon.
Right. He's actually going to attack first, though, with his Scavenging Ooze. And now he's just going to pass a turn back. Remember, he can use Pelukrinos whenever he wants. The problem with this play is that it does open him up to Brave the Elements, which will save his guys from the Pelukrinos activation.
Yeah, I mean I think it's strange because at this point he is so far ahead that I think he's probably fine making that play. But if he had just sent Garrick upstairs again and looked at the top 5 cards, I feel like there would be pretty much no way he could possibly lose. Like it would.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking he was going to do, is just sit there on Garrick while he's got a horde of blockers and just sit there and plus him over and over again, keep his hand completely full. Eventually, he'll draw a Nykthos or something and be able to just plus it and play everything from his hand every turn. And, I mean, Pat Cox is stuck playing 1 to 2 cards per turn. If he plays 2, it's a 1-drop and a 2-drop. Like, he's not really doing much.
And, I mean, if you keep plussing Garrick, like, eventually you're just going to...
You're just going to overwhelm your opponent.
Yeah.
But he decided instead to use the minus ability on Garrick to put Pelukrinos into play and save and leave some mana open.
Yeah, he wanted to leave 5 mana up so that he could activate the Pelukrinos for 2.
I think he actually...
So he removed some cards from the graveyard, pumped that Scavenging Ooze.
He needs to put counters on it, though.
Yeah.
All right, so he didn't even activate Pelukrinos this turn. He's going to wait a turn on it. So, interesting line here from Rudy. I mean, the other thing to remember, of course, is that Pelukrinos, heck of a blocker.
Yeah.
All right, and there's Orzhov Charm. And Pat Cox is going to make it so that Pelukrinos only gets to take down something, a 1 toughness creature.
Yep, so he's going to activate the Monstrous in response. He's going to target this soldier of the Pantheon. And then Pat's actually going to take 6 because the Pelukrinos gets larger when it kills that soldier.
That's right.
So
a pretty big hit there to Pat Cox's life total, but that's not really the most important thing at the moment, as Rudy Fernandez has an active Garrick Caller of Beasts there. And here it goes. 5 more cards, of which he can draw all the creatures. And he's got 1, 2, 3, 4 creatures this time.
yeah, I mean,
3
it makes
Reverend
up for
Hunters.
last time.
Yeah, 3 Reverend Hunters and a Burning Tree Emissary. So that's what you play Garrick for. Plus
Yep.
your Planeswalker draw for? That's just insane.
So, this turn he can play some really big Reverend Hunters.
It's going to be insane.
Looking at a...
So 1, 2, 3, 4,
yeah,
5,
you should play
6,
that Burning
7,
Tree
8.
Emissary first.
Yeah, so that's an 8. That's a 9/9 Reverend Hunter.
I thought he was going to play the Burning Tree Emissary first.
Yeah, it looks like he decided not to. It could have been 11/11, but
It's still lethal if it hits his opponent.
so he's going to grab a dice, and then he can play the other Reverend Hunter, which will be a 10/10.
Yep.
And like you said, he could have played out the Burning Tree Emissary first and done this sort of for free, and had them both too bigger, but he decided not to. Now he's going to do it. So this one's going to be, well, lethal.
Yep.
You know, it's going to be whatever, a 13-13 or something.
Yeah, I mean, it's 3 larger than the other one. So it's,
Yeah,
you
it's
know,
like
he gets
12.
11 counters on it.
Yeah, 12-12. So Pat Cox has a 1-1, a 1-1, a 2-2, and a 2-1 versus a 13-13, a 9-9, a 2-2, a 2-2. Also, he should have gotten 2 evolve
3
triggers
1-1s.
there off of his experiment one, but I think Rudy might have overlooked it.
Yeah, I think he overlooked that.
So that's a shame.
The
Because,
mono green deck is very difficult to play.
yeah.
Players in Commander Pod number 5, you are ready to play.
So back to Pat Cox,
Pod 5 is ready to play.
staring down an opponent with 179 power on board. That's a rough estimate.
Yeah,
Plus
about
18
right.
life. And Pat Cox is at 5 life. So even though there was a missed trigger, a missed activation here and there for Rudy, he's put himself in a position to win this game pretty easily here against Pat Cox's.
Definitely.
Even a string of Brave the Elements isn't going to do it to save Patrick. So he's grinding it out and making sure. Mutavault. Is this Banisher Priest? No. Johnny, Caller of the Pride. And he's going to jump
Yeah, flying double strike.
his guy. So you go down to 14 here, and he gets 2 more soldier tokens to block with. Remember, none of these creatures have evasion on Rudy's side of the table. So even though they're absolutely massive and lethal, they're not actually able to attack unless that's what I think it is, and it is. That is Nylea, which is going to give all of his
Yes,
creatures
it is.
trample here. So when he attacks, they're going to have trample, and that ought to do it, as there's only a lowly Mutavault left behind. And Rudy says, yeah, let's just ship the team. Well, some of the team members in here, and that's going to do it. So Rudy Fernandez takes game 1 versus Pat Cox.
A couple missteps there. It can be, harrowing, having thousands of people watch you play a game of Magic.
Yep.
Let's take a look at these sideboards real quick. So Rudy Fernandez, post board. He has 2 Garruk Primal Hunters in his sideboard. I would really like those to be my main deck.
Yeah,
I think it's the most important card in the deck.
Why don't you tell us about that? Why? Talk to us a little bit about it.
I mean, the whole thing you're trying to do is basically go off. You want to play like you're a combo deck when you're playing these mono green decks.
Caller of Beast.
Oh, Garruk Caller of Beast. Okay. Yeah.
Johnny calls the Pride, Garrett calls the Beast.
Yeah, so it is Garruk Caller of Beast. There's just a little bit of a typo here on the list that I was given. Yeah. So he has 2 Garruk Caller of Beast. I think Garruk Caller of Beast is the strongest card in the deck. I think the mono green devotion decks are combo decks. You should be playing a lot of creatures that produce mana. You're playing Nykthos with a lot of green mana symbols. One of the things that you want to be doing is chaining Burning Tree Emissaries into Nykthos and then casting Garruk, because then you combo out, and your Polo Chronos, you can activate them for like 30 and just wipe your opponent's whole board. If you're playing the deck like the way he has it set up, he's really playing it like it's an aggro deck and not a combo deck. And I feel like you're missing out on a big angle that the Mono Green Devotion deck has, because the Mono Green Devotion deck, gets to play that aggro game anyway, and then also just has this insane Garruk game plan, which we saw there. Like, it's just more powerful than anything else you can be doing.
Right.
And it just dominated the game, and that's a 1-of in his main deck.
Yeah, it's interesting because, he wrote down Garruk Primal Hunter, but he meant Caller of Beast, of course. Primal Hunter no longer legal. But, yeah, he might actually end up getting a game loss for that, because I don't know how it works. We're going to have to find out. But, when you write out your deck list, you, of course, can't name cards that aren't legal in the format, even if you didn't put them in your deck. Anyway, we're going to let the judges handle that. That's what they're here for. What I was going to say, though, JVL, going back to Garruk Caller Beast, I think of it like this. Your deck can make a ton of mana, right? you need to have places to put that mana. The best place would be to have a bunch of cards in your hand. But the problem with that strategy, of course, is that in order to make all the mana, you have to basically dump your hand on the table, right? You got Burning Tree Emissaries and Mana Elves and lands that you dump on the table, and then hopefully you have a Nykthos to go along with it. And now you can make 9 or 10 mana, 12, 15 mana in a turn, but you need stuff to spend it on to make the deck broken. And Garruk allows you to just out-resource your opponent when you're drawing between 1 to 3 to 4, maybe even 5 cards sometimes per activation, and you can have the mana to actually just cast all of those spells at once. That's where you cross the threshold from like sweet to just like, oh my god, like this is.
I
broken.
do like the aggressive angle he took, though. I think that, like for example, some of the stuff that's in here, Boon Satyr is a pretty nice card for a deck like this. I'm surprised he still has the Scavenging Ooze in here if he's going for this type of build.
Well, that's one reasonable place to put at least some of your mana.
Yeah, I guess so.
I mean, it isn't super reliable, but there are times where they kill off your first few elves, and you end up with like a 5/5 ooze that's pretty tough to deal with.
The first time I saw 4 copies of Garruk, Caller of Beasts in the new standard was when we saw Mahara's deck, which top 8 of the Pro Tour. And at first I questioned it for about, I don't know, an hour, and the more I thought about it, it just makes complete sense. And I've played more with green Devotion decks than I have with any other strategy.
Mm-hmm.
And I would be really hard-pressed to not be playing 4 with that card.
Okay.
So.
Point taken. Interesting. Pat Cox, his deck and his sideboard is clearly metagamed pretty strongly for what they expected to see. And I think it's safe to say that mono-green aggro combo is not high on the list of what they were expecting to play against. All right, we have a keep for Rudy. No, double mulligan here for both players. For each player mulligans once.
So Rudy there with a no-land hand. Interestingly, it looks like Rudy sided in Pithing Needle. So I'm not really sure what he's going for with that one. But
he saw an
a Johnny. Yeah.
So he must be very concerned.
Yeah, I guess Johnny does send guys into the air, and from the looks of it, his deck does not have much in the way of dealing with air critters, flying guys in general. He has a single copy of Arbor Colossus, but that's it.
All right, so I just overheard Lems, that's Jason LeMahieu, he's our level 5 head judge here. They are taking a look at Rudy's list, and they are going to go let him know right now what's going on with it. They're going to have to take a look at his deck and see if it has a Garruk Primal Hunter in it. It doesn't, right?
It does not.
We saw that it has that, and then they're going to have to take it from there. So they need to check that themselves, though, which they're doing right now. You can see Rudy stand up. That's because the judges are going to have a quick word. This type of stuff happens all the time. It's a little unfortunate. So the way this usually works is the judges will do deck checks. They will do periodic spot deck checks where they randomly pick people and say, hey, we're going to hold you guys up for just a couple of minutes, and we're going to do a quick check to make sure that all the cards that you said you were going to play with are the ones that are in your deck, and that there's no funny business going on. It just keeps people in line, make sure that nobody's trying to push the boundaries a little by having a 16-card sideboard, or maybe mixing things up by bringing in cards in the middle of the tournament that they feel like would be better than what they actually brought. So it keeps that kind of stuff in check. But the way it works on something like this, where the discovery is made later on, is that they will address it once it's discovered.
Yeah.
So that happens to be right now when Rudy's on the feature match up a game against noted player Patrick Cox. So, not the best timing for Rudy. He looks like he's kind of a younger guy, I think. So, he's got to make sure he keeps his head about him here. This can be kind of a stressful moment. But ultimately,
and he's also playing a very difficult deck, too. So it's
but it's ultimately not a huge deal. This type of stuff happens. I mean, ideally, it doesn't, right? Like, you double check all your stuff, you make sure, but this happens. I mean, geez.
Yeah, he meant
how many versions
Caller
of
Beast,
Garruk are
and then
there?
he wrote Garruk Primal Hunter, and I didn't even catch it. I was saying Garruk Primal Hunter
because
that's what was written down in
Garruk,
front of me.
Right.
Yeah, and I was just thinking, oh well, that's the legal Garruk in Standard.
Right.
And
that's pretty normal.
He has the legal Garruk in Standard in his deck. He just wrote down the wrong card name on his deck list. So
that's right. All right, you see his hands on his head there, and I could tell when they talked to him he looked a little stressed about it, but I think he'll be okay. And the judges are going to take a look now, and they're going to come up with what the ruling would be. I believe it's a game loss for this, generally speaking, though, again, I'm not even a level 1 judge, so maybe I can grab one of them. Yeah. All right, so I'm going to...
Judge coming over.
Yeah.
So, obviously there was a deckless problem.
Right, deckless problem confirmed.
And what the policy for that is that when we discover the issue, we apply the infraction and the penalty.
Okay.
Penalty for the deckless problem is a game loss.
Okay.
So Rudy has lost game number 2.
Okay.
And we corrected the list to match the fact that he actually has the collar of beasts.
Okay.
So he will be playing with those if he wants to.
Okay.
And because he lost game number 2, he gets to choose whether to play or draw. They're going to shuffle up. They're going to resolve mulligans, all that. We're on to game number 3.
Great, thank you, appreciate it.
Thank
So
you.
if you guys couldn't hear the full rundown there, again, like we mentioned before, the infraction is taken care of on the spot. And so that since it was discovered now, they went over there and they double made sure that he didn't have the wrong card in his deck. He didn't. He then got to keep the Garrett Collar of Beast that he had, but the infraction for that is a game loss. So Rudy Fernandez has incurred a game loss here. That's why you see them now at 1-1. And we're going to the third game. Now, since he lost that game, technically, he is going to be on the play. He gets to choose, and he's going to be on the play. And we're going to re-resolve mulligans. Even though he had mulliganed for game 2, that's all gone now. That game's over. That one went to Pat Cox, and now we are in game 3. So Pat Cox is fortunate here. His opponent had a typo on his deck list, and he's going to be the one that benefits because it happened to be caught while he was in the feature match area, and now we get game 3. So that's what's going on with that. The question
But it's very important to just be clerically accurate when you're going to a Magic tournament, because there have been many times where there have been multiple legal Garricks in Standard, and had that been the case,
all right, Rudy's going to have to
very
mulligan this. He had Forest, Nykthos, Forest.
yeah, that's not going to be very good.
That's not going to be the one. Pat Cox keeps his 7-card hand. Now, Pat's on the draw here. And I got to imagine this matchup is just a nightmare for Pat.
It's terrible for Pat.
I mean even
all of
those
his creatures
elves are good against
outclassed.
him.
Yeah.
Like, he can just trade elves for 2/1s. Like,
The elves not only accelerate him, but then
Yes.
become removal spells.
Yes.
Yeah, I know. It's really
so
absurd
unfair.
how bad this is for Pat.
yeah, and then cards like Pelucranos are just stonewalls for his strategy, and on
There's
top
stone
of
walls
it,
that are also plague winds
one-sided
that are
wrath,
also 5/5s for 4 mana.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
like this has got to be, Pat Cox has to feel blessed here
To have gotten that.
Yeah. All right. Is this a keep for Rudy?
That's
Fernandez?
a very good hand for Rudy.
All right. He starts off with an Elvish Mystic. That's his ideal turn 1 play, and well, not ideal here for Pat Cox, but at least it's a turn 1 play with Boros Elite. And there's a second Forest in hand for Rudy, plus...
Oh my goodness gracious! Watch this turn too.
All right.
Whoa!
He did not play Nykthos, so
Okay,
here's Burning Tree
so-
Emissary, and he's going to use the green mana from Burning Tree Emissary to make a Clonian Tusker. So he's got 5 green mana symbols, plus the ability to activate. So next turn he's going to get to play a Reverent Hunter, and it's going to be huge.
Yeah. He could have activated the Nykthos that turn if he had tapped the Elf and the Forest for the Burning Tree Emissary. Then he could have played Nykthos and activated the Nykthos with the Burning Tree Emissary mana, and then
had 3 mana.
He could have had 3 mana, and then he could have
made the Reverend
Tuskered
Hunter.
and or Reverend Hunter, and the Reverend Hunter would have been pretty big.
Yeah.
5/5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 4. 5/5. You're right. 5/5. Now it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's going to be 6/6. So
Oh no, it'll actually be a 7/7 because it would have been a 6/6. He would have had the turn 2 6/6 play.
how?
Well, it's a 1/1. It has a 1 green mana and
But
its
it would have
casting
had
cost.
3+1/+1 counters, right? Or 4. I mean.
4.
Yeah. So
Oh,
5,
yeah,
5.
yeah. So it would have been
5/5.
5/5.
Yeah, you said it.
I'm sorry.
And you were right. Yeah, but now he gets it on turn 3. 1, 2, 3.
7/7.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and it's got 1/1 base toughness here, or base power toughness. So 7-7 on turn 3, not too shabby. 5-5 on turn 2 is not too shabby either, but he also gets to attack for 5 playing it this way. So Rudy looking to be in great shape here in the third game. Can Patrick Cox find something? Well, he does. He finds a Banisher Priest.
And that's pretty good.
Yeah, with all likelihood, that's going to stay there. You know, outside of
Yeah.
a card like Time Defeat or something weird, it's going to be there.
Polukranos.
And Polukranos down the line. Another
That's
Reverend
definitely
Hunter
what
off
he's
the
looking
top
for.
here, though, for Rudy Fernandez. So he can just immediately replay another 7-7 and attack again for 5. And this is the crazy part, is that he's been able to put out these huge blocking / attackers and also attack for 5 each turn, dropping Pat Cox all the way down to 10 here. Here's another draw step for Pat. Pat needs to find something here to deal with that Reverend Hunter.
Yeah, he's getting ran over pretty quickly here. And it's a hard road for Pat from here on out.
Yeah.
The issue is just that his creatures are completely outclassed by this green deck.
That's right. I mean, he could. There's definitely lines that, if he has the right cards, where he can be like Banisher Priest, Play of Plains, leave up Brave the Elements, and if Rudy walks into it, he can get him.
Yeah.
You know, but like, this is just. It's going to take specific sequences plus mistakes from his opponent in order to set that type of stuff up, and that's a lot to ask if you're sitting in Patrick Cox's seat right now. This matchup is so rough for him.
Does Pat have
Rudy's
access
deck
to
is
Doom
sweet, by the
Blades or
way.
anything? He does. So Pat does have some Doom Blades in his deck. Yeah,
Right.
Rudy's deck is pretty awesome.
It's sweet.
I like Reverend Hunter. I think it's a good card.
Okay. And he is certainly maximizing on Reverend Hunter.
Yeah, I mean, his deck is really all in on the Reverend Hunter plan.
Right.
I've had anywhere from 0 to 3 of them in various Green Devotion decks at any given time. He's playing 4 of them, and I don't blame him. If you want this aggressive bend on this type of deck, then that's a card you'd probably want 4 of.
All right, so Pat Cox is tanked out here, trying to figure out how he wants to handle it. This is obviously a super crucial turn. He's going to take 2 damage from Godless Shrine. So he's got plenty of mana here. And just he's going to pass a turn back now. So let's see what Rudy draws for his turn. He's drawn nicely. He draws a Nylea's Disciple, I believe.
Yep.
So he gets a ton of mana here, though he only has really one place to put it. But in Patrick Cox
I don't
says,
think
hold
he
on a
can
second.
respond.
He cannot respond, but he just
It's a mana
says,
ability.
hold on a second here. Yes, so that's, it doesn't put anything on the stack. It just makes a ton of
happens,
mana.
yeah.
So he has 6 mana in his mana pool.
Magic would be an awful confusing game if we could respond to people tapping lands for mana.
Yeah. Yeah. Tap my forest. Is it resolve? Yes. And there it is. Nylea's Disciple. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 life he's going to be gaining here potentially. Which is going to put the race basically out of reach for Pat Cox. But he says, yeah, whatever, man.
Yeah, Pat's really got to grind if he wants to win this game.
He
and
does. He's got to take a
not
really
gonna be
weird
easy for
route
him.
here. And this is going to be interesting because Rudy has got to be concerned. Nope, not concerned. He's going to jam with the team here. In they come, 7-7, a 2-2, and a 3-3 versus a 2-2 and a couple of 1-1s, which, of course, are on defense, are so much more miserable than when you can actually get them swinging. So here's 2 mana for presumably a Doomblade or maybe an Orzhov Charm. It's an Orzhov Charm, and he just takes his medicine here and kills
Goes
a
to
Reverend
1.
Hunter, going down to 1. And he is going to chump block. And here it is. We talked about this play a minute ago. Brave the Elements
Yep.
to take down. Yep. The 2/2 stays alive. Yeah, but so does Pat Cox's side of the board. And remember, though, those 2 creatures down there are also still alive for Rudy Fernandez. He's got a 3/3, a 1/1, and a 2/2 here.
And all he needs to do is poke through with one guy, and
That's
he wins
right.
the game at any point from here on out. So Pat really needs to just flat out dominate from this point forward.
He
which
does.
He's capable of doing, considering he has cards in his hand and his opponent does not.
Absolutely. Like, Pat Cox is doing every single thing he possibly can to keep himself in this game. And here's a Spear of Heliod and a creature. It is. And he plays his land out for the turn and says, go. So Pack Hawks actually has stabilized this board. He now can trade off his own creatures here for Rudy's if Rudy wants to find an attack. And really, there's a ton of pressure on Rudy Fernandez. Draw step. He doesn't have anything. He passes the turn. He can cast anything in his deck, so
Yeah, I mean, he has access to a lot of mana.
got to figure it's just a blank there if you're sitting in Patrick Hawks' seat. And Pat gets to hit a draw step here. Wow. Remember, he's also got Mutavault back there, too, so he has one extra blocker. He's got 4 creatures on the battlefield versus 3, plus he's got Mutavault back there, so he actually can attack here. Wow, Pat Cox.
Pat Cox.
Look at this guy.
I like Pat Cox.
So he gets a couple
crazy.
of triggers, and he's going to attack for 3, 6, 7, 8 damage here. Rudy's at 26. Doesn't he just say, like, whatever, I'll take anything?
Yeah, I mean, well, 8 plus 3. So it's 11, actually, that he's tagging for.
3, 6, right, plus 3. 8 plus 3, right.
Yeah.
Nice spear. Jeez. Spear of Heliod. Not going to be able to be activated on the other side of the coin here since any damage Pat takes will just kill him. But he's got a creature to follow up. It's a Precinct Captain plus
really
the
good
Mutavault.
one.
Means he's got blocks. And Rudy Fernandez draws, well, a lethal attacker, but not the right one. And all of a sudden, Pat Cox has found himself in a position where in 2 turns he could potentially end this game. This is going to be really, really close. If Rudy bricks on his next draw step, Pat could be in good shape here, especially if he draws a creature. Draw step. Takes a look at his mana. Remember, he's got Mutavault. Rudy Fernandez has 1 card in hand, but Pat has to assume that it's nothing. Rudy's had it in his hand for 2 turns.
And he has access to Nykthos mana.
And he has infinite mana, so Pat just has to figure that his opponent doesn't have anything of value in hand. So the only question is, how much damage can he get in this turn without dying?
Yeah, so he needs to lead back 4 blockers.
4 blockers, including the
so
Mutavault.
he can attack with 2 guys.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Oh, this is interesting.
So he's definitely drawn a creature here. Oh, well, it's because of the Precinct Captain.
Oh, the Precinct Captain
So
will make a blocker.
it must be chumped or it will make a blocker. So either way, it's going to negate one of the potential attackers from Rudy Fernandez. So he can
That
swing
makes
with
sense.
that freely. This also triggers both Boros Elites. They're now 4/4s. So he's swinging for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 on almost lethal attack. If he would have attacked with Banished Priest, he actually could have forced a chump block. Unfortunately for him, he would have lost his Priest, given his opponent another lethal attacker, and then lost the game. So Pat Cox wisely deciding not to lose the game. Gotta appreciate that. And now Rudy Fernandez, hand in his hair, trying to figure out how to get himself out of this mess. He had such a good start. He puts his opponent down to 1. Rudy takes all of it. And here's a token as well. Remember Mutavault, and he's got a creature in his hand too. And it's an imposing sovereign, just in case there's something with haste.
Oh, but
Uh-oh.
is that what I think it is?
That
is.
is Nylea, the god Nylea.
And that's going to be good enough.
And that should be enough for him to pump a creature. So how much mana does he have available? So if he activates Nykthos, so tap it, he gets 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mana, and then he has 2 extra mana. So that's actually not enough then, right? Because he needs to pay 4 mana to pump one of his creatures to get it through.
Well, he can cast the Nylea and then activate it. And then activate the Nykthos.
Okay.
He casts Nylea, then he attacks with Disciple and
I know,
Burning
but
Emissary,
they all have
and then-
trample, but all of Patrick Cox has a 3/3, a 3/2, and a 3/3 to block with. All right, well, we're going to let Rudy figure it out here.
Oh, Rudy's doing it pre-combat.
Doing what?
Using his Nykthos. So
Well, but he has to
needs
tap elves to use it otherwise, right? So you're saying you want him to, like, take a Burning Tree Emissary and try to make that into, like, a 4/4? I mean, Pat Cox is going to be able to figure out what's happening here and just double block or whatever if
Yeah, no,
Rudy
you're
has to
right, you're
tap.
right.
So
Huh.
and makes it into a 4/4. It's +2/+2.
Yeah.
And makes it into a 5/5.
Yeah. So
Yeah, Yeah, but he's going to have, in order to do that, doesn't he have to tap both of his, one of his elves? All right, so let's take a look here. Right now, Pat Cox is doing the math as well. So,
Yeah,
he
so-
tapped.
Tap that for
Right.
4, 5, 6, and then swings with everything, and then Pat's dead. Yeah.
So Pat Cox is going to activate his Mutavault here. And right now he's being attacked with a 3-3 trample, a 1-1 trample, 1-1 trample, and a 2-2 trample.
And, you know, Pat's got to be pretty upset because had he, you know, just left back another blocker, he'd be alive, and Rudy would be dead.
So he pumped one of his creatures here as well, right?
Yep.
He pumped, say, the 5-5.
Yeah, he pumped the 3-3. So Pat only has 4 blockers, right?
All right, so he pumped Nylea's Disciple, so it looks like Rudy Fernandez sitting at
victorious.
1-1 in both games and life total is going to steal one here. I mean, he was way ahead. But that's going to do it, and Pat Cox has to extend the hand. Rudy is victorious. Wow, what a heartbreaker for Pat Cox. So close. He got one of the game wins off of a deck reg error from Rudy, and Rudy found that has to be the only card in his deck that wins him the game, right?
Yeah, it's the only card in his deck that wins in that game.
I mean, I can't think of any. Maybe does Boon Satyr
Wow.
do anything here? I don't think anything else does anything.
Nope, Boon Satyr doesn't do it.
He had
Needs
3
that
of them in his
trample.
list, and he finds one off the top of his deck, and Pat Cox is now 10-4.
Yeah, given that Pat Cox knew that Nylea was in his opponent's deck, he could have made a different attack the turn prior, and he would have won the game. So it is magic still, you know. It's crazy though. It is absolutely insane.
Yeah, that was a crazy game. All right, let's take a look at our secondary feature match. Looks similar on the right-hand side of the screen there. Precinct captains ×3 with 3 of their friends.
It's Oren Beasley there.
That's
Pat's
Oren.
best friend.
And they're playing the same deck. And on the other side, I think it's Philip Marshall, and he's playing mono blue. And it looks like he's in decent shape here. I'm assuming those tokens aren't actually on the battlefield up there, so it's just Jace on 5 plus double Tidebinder Mage, which isn't really doing anything here, and Judge's Familiar. So would you assume that we're in attacks here from Oren?
I'm not sure.
It looks like it because Philip has his hand on the table. He's tapped out. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So it looks like some of them were going at Jason, some of them were going at Philip, potentially. Jace drops down to 2 loyalty and a Daring Skyjack for Oren Beasley's a follow-up play. Now Oren has the same record, 10-3, that Pat Cox had.
Oren has Profit Loss in hand, which can do some pretty neat stuff against that Jace. And with the first strike that he has and the way these 2 boards match up against one another, I think he's going to be pretty happy to use that for a lot of value here. All right, so Philip Marshall trying to figure out the best course of action. He's pretty behind in this board. He does have a Jace, though, which is one of the best cards you can have against these white aggro strategies.
Yeah, just keep plussing it.
Mm-hmm.
This match is also tied up at 1 game apiece. We're on round 14 in Dallas. Fort Worth, if you want to be specific. It's all
looks
just
like
it's
the
all
ice
just
is
a
starting
white
to melt a
wasteland
little
for
bit.
me.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know the difference. Those tokens aren't in play, right, Rashad? That's not like a frog lizard token that somebody used or something? Okay. So Philip Marshall's tanked out here. I mean, this is obviously a critical turn in this match, and both
Looks
players
like he
being
has a
at 10 and
Master of
3.
Waves in hand.
He has a Master of Waves and some islands,
Yeah, he just has Master of Waves and Islands.
so he's actually just deciding if he wants to attack here.
I guess so. I guess he's deciding what his attacks are going to be.
Yeah, because I mean, if it's Master of Waves and Island, and he assumes that it's going to live, then he can battle. But if not, he's going to want to leave at least Judge's Familiar back to block Darien Skyjack, you'd think. All right, Jace drops to 0, and Domestication, Night Veil Spectre, and an Island.
Huh. So this is an interesting split. I think yeah, you probably just separate the domestication. One thing I like to do with Factor Fiction piles is split them quickly.
Why?
I feel like instincts pretty good, things like that.
I see.
It's like when you're playing a lot of different card games, like your first thought is the right play more often than the digging deep if you're in like a tight spot where you're on a fence.
Well, Philip Marshall does not subscribe to that school of thought. Apparently.
Yeah, I mean that's a kind of a crazy school of thought.
He's
But
a thinker. I mean, this entire turn has been activate Jace,
yeah,
pick which pile, and it's been like 5 minutes. Okay, he took the domestication.
they got to be careful. They're running low on time now. I mean, when this turn started, there was more than 10 minutes left on the clock, and now there's only 4 minutes and 20 seconds left.
Oh,
So,
is that right? Okay.
Yeah, I'm surprised he wasn't told to speed up a little bit even.
Yeah. Well, now he's back in the tank, though, doing combat math. He can
Yeah,
play Master
so-
of Waves, or he can play Domestication. If he
Those
plays
are the cards he can play.
If he plays Domestication, he can steal Darien Skyjack, which he's able to block with, or he can steal a Precinct Captain for down the line.
If he does play Domestication, I imagine he's going to be taking the Daring Skyjack.
Right.
Then again, with his opponent's board, it seems like Master of Waves really the biggest thing that he could do. And I mean, if Oren has a removal spell, he has a removal spell, and then you're in a bad spot basically no matter what.
All right. Weaponize
So
the
6
sea ponies. Yeah, there they are.
Are you a subscriber of the dice on top of the token? Or oh, nice.
I am not.
Good stuff.
Under no circumstance.
Good stuff. I like this.
All about tokens. I like being able to see what's tapped easily. Like
Same.
that's my main thing.
Yep.
I've had games get won or lost based on that. All right, here's Banisher Priest to take down Master of Waves and Sea Ponies down. And Oren Beasley. That's a lot of creatures.
That is a lot of dudes that he has there.
Yeah.
So I think they all come in, except
No.
maybe the Skyjack.
Well, no, I mean, because
Oh no, Philip's at 14. I'm sorry.
yeah, if he attacks with the others, he just loses 2 tokens in the Skyjack. So he's just going to attack with the Precinct Captains, which is going to draw a double block to kill at least one of them.
And that's absolutely fine. I mean,
Yeah.
he's going to get 2 tokens off of this. He's going to trade the Precinct Captain for his opponent's Tidebinder Mage. He's left with a very serious board presence where his opponent has very little to interact with him.
That's right. Also, 4 damage gets in this turn 2, decreasing the clock. And Oren Beasley looks like he's in a real good spot here.
And with Profit Loss and a Johnny Caller, the Pride's still in hand for
Oh,
him.
really?
Yeah.
Yeah, because one of the things that Oren's got to be worried about is having Banisher Priest bounced, getting, and then running into a bunch of sea ponies. But that's not going to be an issue here. That's
so
an
taking
interesting
this Banisher
one.
Priest is pretty good because now Oren's going to have a tough time trying to attack with anything that doesn't fly because, I mean, he'll give his opponent back a Master of Waves, and that's serious.
Now, Oren Beasley could just play Loss here to take out Judge's Familiar one way or another. And that would let the Daring Skyjack through, and he could attack with, the whole squad here.
So 3 blockers, those 3 get blocked, he gets through for 5. If Profit Loss can get through. Huh. Yeah, Oren's got a pretty interesting situation here. He can also just play a Johnny, throw a Captain up into the air.
Or he could just play a Johnny, put it on the Daring Skyjack, and that would enable its attack through the Judge's Familiar. A lot of options here. Interestingly, he can also play a Johnny and start pumping up the Banisher Priest, forcing the Domestication to fall off.
Oh, it's not creature you control?
What do you mean?
A Johnny Caller of the Pred?
Oh, I think it's just target creature. We should double check, though. I might have just assumed that wrongly.
No, it's just any creature.
Yeah, so that's a
So
line
he
he could take
can-
down the line. But for now, it's battle time. All the tokens plus the Daring Skyjack hitting the red zone here.
That's a great attack here from Oren because the Banisher Priest can't die. There's absolutely no block that Philip could make that would kill the Banisher Priest. So,
All right, so Philip makes his blocks here, and he's going to get to take down a couple of the tokens, take 3 damage, and trade off the rest. All right, 2 minutes left for these players, and you can see the pace quicken a little bit here on Philip Marshall's side, as he's been playing a little slow. Draw step, finds a Tidebinder Mage. The Rage Riffle.
yeah, looking for anything, and it's just a Grizzly Bear. It's not going to do what he needs it to.
He's going to play it out. Say go. And Oren Beasley looks to be in prime position here as he followed up with the Daring Skyjack, which now has a clear path along with a bunch of creatures on the battlefield here.
I think he can now send with everything if he so desires to do it.
He found another Banisher Priest. Does he have an Orzhov Charm in hand too?
No, I think his hand is Profit Loss, a Johnny, Banisher Priest, and Boros Elite.
Okay. Yep, I see that too.
So, I mean, he could just play a Johnny, give the Boros Elite flying, double strike, and then attack with everything, and he wins. Probably doesn't even attack with the captains for fear of Master. So, yep. A Johnny, minus ability, targeting Boros Elite, attack you with soldier tokens, and is he just going to send everybody?
He gave the precinct captain flying in first strike,
okay.
a double strike, and that's going to do it right there. Philip Marshall falling to Oren Beasley 2 games to 1.